We begin with breaking news out of the Middle East, where after more than 2 years of war, Israel and Hamas have agreed to the first phase of a peace plan that should see the release of all remaining hostages in Gaza in exchange for Palestinian prisoners and the withdrawal of Israeli forces to, quote, agreed upon lines. We've got team coverage for you on this morning. CBS News correspondent Margaret Brennan is tracking reaction from the White House. You see her on the left. But let's begin with CBS News reporter Haley Ott in Tel Aviv. Haley, good morning. This is major news. An agreement is in place. What's the reaction there and what happens now?
Good morning. So, as you said, a deal to halt the fighting in Gaza and exchange all the remaining hostages for over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners has been agreed. There are 48 remaining hostages, around 20 of whom are believed to still be alive. Now, this is the first phase of that 20-point peace plan that the White House put out alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about 10 days ago. And there are still some more difficult elements of that proposal to be hammered out, like how Hamas will disarm, whether it will agree to step back from Palestinian politics, and who will govern Gaza. But all that will come later. Netanyahu is meeting with his cabinet and the government later today. After that government meeting, a 24-hour clock will begin for Israel to retreat to an agreed line still within Gaza. Then a 72-hour period will begin for Hamas, during which it will be required to release all the hostages.
And Haley, you've been reporting from Hostage Square throughout the week where the mood has been tempered. What's the difference today?
The mood is completely different today. Hopefully you'll be able to see behind me that the square is completely full. This is a symbolic place where people have gathered throughout the war to be with one another when hostages have been freed in other partial deals, to support one another and the hostage families. And now people are gathering here because, as you'd expect, this is an enormous day. For pretty much the last 2 years, the families of the hostages and many Israelis have been turning out on the street, protesting, demanding that their government agree to some sort of deal to bring all the hostages home and end the war in Gaza. And now it seems like that could be happening. There's still a ways to go in terms of the next phase of the White House proposal, but people are hopeful that the horrible chapter that's taken place over the last 2 years may be coming to a close. And we are here in Tel Aviv, but the feeling in Gaza today, our colleagues, their report is similar. It's one of relief and hope that this war might end. Over 67,000 people have been killed there in this war, according to local health officials, and the humanitarian situation has been catastrophic.
Yeah, and we saw one gentleman behind you kind of raising his arms in the air, an increased sense of hope, certainly. Haley, thank you very much. CBS News correspondent Margaret Brennan joins us from the White House with more on this. Natalie, good morning. This is clearly a major win for President Trump, despite the big hurdles ahead. What are we hearing from the White House?
Good morning, Errol. The president calling this historic and unprecedented and thanking and crediting the negotiators and the mediators who helped make this possible, including those from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who worked with the U.S. during these peace talks this week in Egypt. Of course, the president's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law and Mideast advisor during the first term, Jared Kushner, were there in person. All week long, we heard the president say that they were getting close. Then yesterday, we had this moment here at the White House when, during a roundtable, Secretary of State Marco Rubio interrupted, walked over to the president, passed him a note, and the Associated Press photographer there kind of zoomed into the writing, which appeared to say that they were close and they needed him to approve a Truth Social post so the president could announce the deal first. Then later in the evening, we got that Truth Social post from the president saying that he was proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have signed off on phase 1 of this peace plan. He spoke about it to Fox News last night. Take a listen.
Gaza, we believe, is going to be a much safer place, and it's going to be a place that reconstructs, and other countries in the area will help it reconstruct because they have tremendous amounts of wealth, and they want to see that happen. And we'll be involved in helping them make it successful.
And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu put out a statement saying he spoke to President Trump by phone last night and also invited him to address Israel's parliament, the Knesset. The president has floated going to the Middle East as early as later this weekend. There's also a letter that was sent from the families of hostages to the White House inviting the president to meet with them as well.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is convening his cabinet today to ratify that agreement. And President Trump applauded the deal on social media. He said, quote, "This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon." He also called this deal the first steps toward a strong, durable and everlasting peace. Of course, we've got team coverage on this for you this morning. Weijia Zhang is standing by at the White House for us. But let's begin with Deborah Patter in Jerusalem. Good morning, Deborah. Just bring us up to the minute on what's happening now and specifically what wheels Israeli approval will set into motion.
Well, this is a big deal in the region. Israel's government will formally vote on the proposal later today. But essentially, there is a deal. Israeli troops will then withdraw to a defined line within Gaza. And that is when the 72-hour clock begins for Hamas to release all the hostages, 48 in total, at least 20 believed to still be alive. President Trump indicated that that release would happen in one go, possibly on Monday. But there's been no clarity on whether a resolution has been reached on some of the thorny issues on both sides, notably no details from Hamas on its disarmament or the future governance of Gaza. President Trump, as you know, proposed a temporary body with himself as chair, and eventually it would be handed over to the Palestinian Authority. Ultra-right nationalist hardliners within Netanyahu's ruling coalition, many of whom want to reconstruct settlements in Gaza, are also likely to object to this, and we still don't know the names of the Palestinian prisoners who will be released in exchange for those hostages. The plan states around 250 prisoners serving life sentences will be released as part of this first stage of the deal. Errol?
And Deborah, while there are so many specifics to figure out, each side has been unable to get to this point many times. So what reaction is there now in Israel and in Gaza to at least an approval on step one?
Well, let's stress, this really is monumental. It's a massive step forward. In Israel, spontaneous celebrations broke out in Hostage Square for 734 days. This is where essentially hope was kept alive. Families never gave up, demanding the release of their loved ones. So it's a huge moment for them, waiting, marching, protesting, petitioning President Trump. I spoke to one relative who told me they can hardly believe that it's finally true, but they're overjoyed. And that joy was also seen in Gaza, where people broke into song and dance. Remember, it's also been 734 days there as well, an endless stream of loss and displacement and war. And more than anything, Palestinians also just want those bombs to stop falling. Now, a ceasefire is what they've been longing for, and we expect to hear more details on exactly that later today. Errol.
All right, Deborah Patter live for us in Jerusalem. Deborah, thank you. Let's jump now to CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Zhang for more. Weijia, good morning. This is a significant win for President Trump, his administration being key in helping to bring all sides to this phase of the agreement. So what role might the U.S. play in the future of Gaza?
Oh, good morning, Errol. Good morning to everybody. You're absolutely right. This is the culmination of several months of intense negotiations. Some periods were off, some obviously were on, but in the end, the president was able to make this announcement yesterday, just 10 days after he unveiled a peace plan. Remember, he hosted Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu here at the White House and laid out his vision for not only the end to the war, but what comes next. To your point, your question, Errol, the president is proposing an international body, what he calls a board of peace or a council of peace that will include experts from around the world, Palestinians, to try to determine how the framework of the government will exist and how they can move forward. He would be the chair of that under his plan. But it really is TBD, Errol, to see how far along that can go. And a lot of the details in the agreement we still don't know. So we don't know whether Hamas will have a seat on that board. We don't know ultimately what Hamas has agreed to in terms of disarming, which has always been a sticking point. But in terms of the U.S., certainly the president, for now, envisions that he will have a role, along with other administration officials, to establish some kind of governing body for Gaza, which he said last night during an interview, Errol, that will be rebuilt.
Significant nonetheless. Weijia Zhang with all the latest details there. Weijia, thank you.